San Francisco, folks, I don't know if you've seen these videos. We ain't showing them. But in San Francisco, there was this thing going on called the Pride Month, which, as if one day isn't enough, they needed an entire month, another 140 days for the year to just kind of celebrate all the stuff that they're doing. And you see in the streets, I don't even want to tell you what was happening between two men in the middle of the street. One guy was laying in a pool asking other men to use your imagination on what it is. But watch what happened, Vinny, when this guy's asking the cops what the laws in San Francisco, if it's legal to do this or not. Go ahead, Vinny.
Yeah, so basically, Peter, I don't know the guy's name, but there's a few of them going around here with cameras. These are cops in San Francisco. They confirm that full nudity is allowed and legal in front of children, in front of kids, at Pride events because it's not for sexual gratification. And what you were talking about, Pat, had to do with guys out in public, naked, doing these acts, urinating and doing all this crazy stuff. And this is them. And pay attention, what community do you think these cops are in? Go ahead and play it, Rob.
One question for you guys. I'm a news reporter, so obviously there's a lot of nudity around here, men, women, transsexual stuff going on, and there's kids, wandering around the event. I'm not sure on San Francisco's laws or California's laws. Is it legal for nudity to be presented in front of kids?
Nudity is legal, yeah, within certain boundaries.
But then, what are the boundaries? Do you know?
Coupled with a lewd act. Yeah, anything coupled with a lewd act or anything being done for sexual gratification that involves other people.
Okay, but this event wouldn't be considered for sexual gratification.
No, if they're walking around and it's out, that's right. That'd be different than if they're masturbating or if they're forcing, like flashing people, right? Like trying to get their attention and flashing. But no,
even with kids, it's fine to be nude as long as there's no masturbation or anything like that.
Unbelievable.
Okay. One question for you guys.
Like you said, guys, we cannot show the videos, even like libs of TikTok and gays against groomers. They have to blur out the majority of this stuff. But explain to me. Nobody can still explain to me. You're proud about being gay. Congratulations. I think pride, and it's a whole different conversation. What does that have to do with you butt naked? But let's put the kids to the side. You're naked and doing crazy shit like that in the middle of the street. How is that normal? What is that doing to further, like gay people have made so many strides, Pat, to get to this point. What the hell are we talking about here? Like
So yesterday I had this guy on the podcast. There's 5 interviews that haven't come out. By the way, I did a 2-hour interview with Mark Epstein. And we'll go into the Epstein story here in a minute. I'll tell you one thing he told me, a private phone call he had with Jeffrey Epstein. But one of the guests I interviewed yesterday was Neil Howe. Neil Howe wrote the book, The Fourth Turning. Tom, did you ever read The Fourth Turning?
No, I have not.
Okay, so it's about, how every society goes through these 4 turning point that they go through. One is the high, and then you got, I think it's like the unraveling or the awakening, and then it's the crisis, okay? And they made, in 1997, when he wrote this book with his partner, William Strauss, they predicted 5 events that were going to happen, okay? One of the events was a massive financial crisis. Check, it happened.
Wow.
Second event they predicted was a massive pandemic. Check, it happened. Third event they predicted, Rob, was Russia would invade one of the Soviet Union neighboring countries.
This is from 1997 he did this?
This is from 1997.
So rebuild Humpty Dumpty.
Yes, to rebuild Humpty Dumpty. Number 3. The fourth one that they talked about had to do something with the Tea Party. All 4 happened. The 5th one hasn't happened.
What's that?
And I said, so what's the 5th one? He says, every single time when you get to the 4th turning where crisis is here, where you see stuff and behavior that just doesn't make any sense, the only way massive change happens is through war. And I said, what kind of war? He says, well, America is showing all signs of a civil war. And I said, civil war? He says, yeah. He says, have you heard of Barbara F. Walter? I said, no, I know Barbara Walters. I thought it was his daughter, but it's not. It's her daughter, but it's not. Barbara F. Walter wrote a book. Rob, if you can pull up this book, Barbara F. Walter. The book is called The Next Something, Rob. Something. If you just go to Amazon, right there. How Civil Wars Start. She goes to all of these countries around the world and interviews people who went through civil war and asks them a question about how it happened. Every single person from different countries who did not know each other, you know what was the first answer everybody gave? None of us saw it coming before it came, okay? So I'm like, okay, so fine. I said, so let me ask you this question. You know, what part of these 4 turnings? He says, because this turning is what leads to kids becoming artists. This turning is what, you know, gave us birth to Walt Whitman and the feminist movement. And he's kind of talking about all these things, right? I said, what part of the turning is with what they're doing in San Francisco right now, where men are walking around pleasing each other in public and absolute nudity with kids being around? Is any of these turnings have to do where values and principles is completely lost? Meaning morals is completely out the window. You're not even thinking about it. He said, yes, that plays a very important role. I said, so how does that common sense come back? He says, it only happens. All the 4 turnings that we've studied, every single one of them ends with a war. I said, are you saying this one's ending with a war? He says, I didn't say that. He says, all I'm saying to you is the previous ones that we've studied, they all end with a war. And if this one is given signs that it could be a civil war, I said, what do you mean by civil war? He says, look, when I was a kid, in our community, what's different about today is the fact that in our community, we had relatives that voted for Nixon. We had relatives that voted for John F. Kennedy. It was very simple. Nobody was like, oh, there's voter fraud, because there was everybody in our community. He says, what's happened in America today is those who are conservatives are all living next to each other, and those who are liberals are all living next to each other. So whatever that happens, they can't believe that happened because everybody around them is what? Like them.
Exactly.
That was not the case in the 60s and the 70s. Again, he's saying this, right? I said, so where are you going with this? He says, these are all signs of civil war. These are all signs of civil war. I said, okay. He said, so what you mean to tell me some states may succeed and just kind of be like, we're going to be our own country and et cetera, et cetera? He says, well, it could happen. It wouldn't be that easy. It could happen. I said, okay. How high is the temperature right now? Because he said the 4th turning, Rob, is going to go till when? 2028 to early 2030s.
Correct.
2028 to early 2030s. They go in 20-year increments. Okay, 46 to 64, 64 to 84, 84 to 08, and now 08 till to 2028. That's what he's saying, maybe early 30s. I said, how high is the temperature right now compared to what it's going to be if a war comes? He said, we're probably at a 5 or 6 right now.
Oh, wow. So we're low.
So we're probably at a 5 or 6 right now.
Right in the middle.
That's exactly what he's saying. Meaning, everything leans towards one of 2 things. He says, look, eventually when a 4th turning happens, everybody has a one man that leads it that everybody follows. A leader shows up that he says, this is how we're going to do things moving forward. And it's the restructuring of everything. I said, restructuring everything? He says, yeah, the restructuring everything. I said, such as what? He says, everything gets restructured. He says, during the Great Depression, guess what? A guy came in and says, here's how we're going to do this moving forward. Everything changed, right? He introduced what? Welfare, all this social, everything.
The New Deal.
The New Deal, all this stuff, right? It was because they're like, oh my God, we're open to it. It's war. Let's change. Great Depression. Boom. Massive World War II, World War I. So I don't know, man. All I'm saying to you is some of the stuff that we're seeing that is happening, to me, makes 0 sense. When we were in California 4 weeks ago and we're seeing some of this stuff, it makes 0 sense why that's beneficial to any society. 0. So either we're going to be so far off that everybody's going to have their own set of countries you're going to move to, where Florida becomes a country, Texas becomes a country, or you have to go through some shitty times until we all line up and say, you know what, we went a little too far with this LGBTQ stuff. We'll stop. We went a little too far with this. But that was kind of what he was talking about.
And I'm happy
yesterday.
that you say like that, because I'm losing my mind. I feel like I'm living in a different realm, especially when they have the kids, doing it in front of the kids and the parents that bring them. And then I realize, PBD, these people cannot reproduce. If you're in that LGBTQAI plus whatever, you're not reproducing. So you know how they do it? They recruit your kids. That's how they multiply. They grab your kids. The kids that are there, remember the last week we showed that trans stripper boobs? That kid was looking at, that kid is going to be traumatized for the rest of its life. And that's how they reproduce, because that's how they grab these kids. They grab them young and like, hey, it's okay.
So it's very interesting. The city that we stayed in is Graz, Australia, second largest city in Austria. Second largest city in Austria behind Vienna. Graz is also where Arnold is from, right? And so what was very interesting is we didn't see homeless there. And, nothing was perfect, but it was much cleaner, wasn't a lot of homeless. And I asked a couple people what their perspective is on, and they had heard a little bit about the debate coming by Sunday morning. But here was the unified statement. They all were right down the middle with this. It says, a strong, and the other word that was used is organized. A strong or an organized America is good for all of us. And when they said us, they mean common Europe. Because when they say us, they've been living as us since EU, the European Union, was established. So they talk us a lot. Oh, I live here, but when I say us, I mean EU. We have economy, we have everything. And he says, a strong America is good. I said, what do you think is right now? I said, we think you're crazy.
Yeah.
He says, how did this happen? You only have Biden, you only have Trump? Because remember, they've got multiple parties and they make coalition governments and things. So they have two views. Number one, a strong and an organized America is good for them, and they're waiting for that. And number two, right now, how can you only have these two choices? Look at us. We have all these choices, and we got a 28-year-old guy coming out of the far right in France.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? But they were very complimentary. They were sweet.
Well, give them our best, Tom, next time you see them.
Tom,
No, what I'm saying is they were not aggressive. They were actually balanced.
Yeah, that's great. Adam.
Yeah. Well, let me address where America stands on the world stage. There was just a recent report. My guy Fareed Zakaria, my guy, I watch him every Sunday on CNN. He did this global leadership report, and it basically sort of broke down how the world views America, not just by itself, but against other world leaders. And it was America versus China was the prime example. They polled, I think, 25 different countries all around the world for U.S. approval ratings versus China approval ratings. By the way, what do you think the results look like around the world? Favorability of the United States of America around the world, 60%. Favorability of China around the world, 28%. So we're more than double what China stands for in the world. So, they're talking about by 2025, that China 2025 taking over the world. The world ain't buying it. So, this is why I always say that, America has to basically grapple between being an interventionalist or an isolationist. If we lose our place on the world stage and we retreat from global leadership, China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, they're going to fill that void. So I'm definitely not a fan of just countless, endless world wars or funding wars for trillions of dollars, but just vacating our position of the number one country in the world for leadership, I think would be a poor decision. With that being said, the world prefers America's Western liberal democratic values over any of these authoritarian dictators. But what's interesting? There was one more stat here, and they said the reputation of America's good for global influence. Like, is America good or bad for the world? You know what country? They had all these countries: South Africa, Poland, Peru, South Korea, Sweden, Brazil, Great Britain, Malaysia, Australia, Germany, Canada, Turkey, France, Italy, Spain, Argentina, the list goes on. Do you know that every single one of those countries had a better perception than worse perception of America? Do you know the only country that had a worse perception of America? You know what it was? America itself.
We think that
Americans
we suck.
have been ingrained for the last 10 years that we suck. I can even show you this stat.
Yeah. When you're carrying a flag and your autistic kid gets punched in the face, of course people hate America because they're brainwashed and they're taught to hate this freaking country. And no wonder why this fourth turning is going to happen, because we're all freaking separated and divided. And we hate
those
everything.
people don't live here and see us fighting on our front lawns.
Exactly.
Yeah. What they see is what is around the world, and they see what's in their front lawn. And as a comparative thing, what Adam is pointing out, the numbers show that they think highly of us.
Well, exactly. You always say that words talk, numbers scream. I'm getting that right. The world is looking at America and they're like, guys, you're still number one. Like, let's get it together. And then internally, we're like, yeah, we suck. We're the worst. Gen Z now believes in socialism over capitalism. They think that, Gen Z, the children are our future. They have a negative perception of America. So I think what we need to sort of recognize is, as bad as we think it is, as
What is
disconnected
this?
as we
What's
think
orange?
we are.
What's blue? 2019, 2024.
Yes.
And then on the left, it's U.S., how we looked at each other versus today?
Correct.
Well,
Correct.
that means we look at ourselves less than we did five years ago.
That's what I'm saying.
That
Is
makes sense to me
Yes.
because that's what Biden's done.
Yes.
Good point.
No, but the point is, I actually agree that Americans look at themselves as a country in a weaker way than we did 5 years ago. Yes, this is a correct assumption of how we view ourselves in the last 5 years, if that's his take. Because what's happened in the last 5 years? Who was president in 2019? What was going on in 2019? ISIS disappeared. Economy was good. We're doing great. People are making money. America was proud to be American. We were like, hey, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, doesn't matter. Today, a lot has changed in the last 5 years.
Right.
So that's a massive drop off. What's the number from, Rob? Is it from 50 to 30? Or from 50 to 35? 5, 10, 35, 50 to 34. Yeah.
So, yeah,
Japan
exactly.
hates us. Japan hates us.
No, but ultimately what these numbers show is that the world has a very good opinion of the United States. Despite all the differences that we have, internally is where we're hemorrhaging. So, I actually sent you some headlines from around the world. U.S. extends its lead over China in the race for the world's biggest economy, Bloomberg. A surge in wealth has boosted the most U.S. households since 2020, and it helps sustain economic growth. AP, Axios, U.S. winning the world economic war. So his ultimate take is that we should actually have more confidence in our country that we do. What's my point? We started this segment off about having a civil war. What the hell are we talking about? What does that even look like? There's no longer North and South. So even the reddest of states, 2/3 of people in the reddest states are conservative and 1/3 are liberals. In the bluest states, whether it's Massachusetts, whether it's California, whether it's New York, 2/3 are more liberal, 1/3 are more conservative. So, it seems that state by state we're sort of fractured, but even within states, you have Republicans, Democrats, purple, red, blue. So what would even a civil war even look like? And by the way, I think there's a stat out there that shows that Trump voters, I think 52% say that a secession from the Union or a civil war is more likely, whereas Biden supporters, it's like 42%, still not a good number, anytime we're talking about civil war. But I think it's important to remember the Civil War, which was 1861
by the way, let me ask,
1865, a million Americans
but
died.
let me
What are we
ask you
talking
this.
about?
Let me ask you this here.
Yeah.
Okay, so go with it. Let me ask you this here. Are you planning on having kids?
Yes, I am.
Okay. What is the likelihood that you would be okay living in California, in San Francisco?
What is the likelihood?
What is the likelihood that you, as a father, with your kids, say, something tells me you're going to have a daughter, okay? So say if God grants you a daughter, gifts you a daughter, what's the likelihood? Your wife says, no, babe, let's move to San Francisco, screw all this stuff. And, you marry like AOC's second cousin, okay?
Yeah.
And you guys have a kid and she wants to leave this place and you guys go to San Francisco. What's the likelihood as the breadwinner of the family, as the moneymaker, you would be okay raising your family in San Francisco?
No, it's not happening. I'm staying in Miami. I'm
but
staying
why
in
not?
Florida.
But why not? Why not?
I can go down the list of reasons. I'm just not from California. I don't believe in what's going on out there. I do care about taxes. I do care about crime.
Okay.
I do care about cost of living. I do care about homelessness.
I do
care about not indoctrinating kids. The list goes on
Okay,
and on
so
and
let me
on
ask
and
you a
on.
question.
Yeah.
How much longer until DeSantis is no longer the governor?
I think his term comes up in 2028.
Can you check, Rob, when DeSantis is done? When is DeSantis' term up?
2028, I want to say.
Is that what it is?
He got elected in 2022. The governors are six
Yeah,
years,
I thought,
right?
doesn't he term limit in 28?
27? Okay. So 2027. Okay, so that means we got what? 3 more years.
26 election he's out. He term limits at 26 election and then he leaves January 5th.
Okay, guys, just so you know, it's only 2.5 years. Okay. So what if in 2027 you got a new governor who's a liberal? And what if all of a sudden, hypothetically, Adam, the LGBTQ stuff becomes extremely aggressive in the state of Florida and kids? And what if he stays for 8 years? And what if his guy becomes a governor and stays for another 8 years in the state of Florida? 16 years, 2 liberal governors, back to back. LGBTQ is on a high rampage here. It's insanity in schools. You're not in it, where you're not hearing what's going on with schools. There was a big Christian school here locally where the senior pastor does an event recognizing LGBTQ. 300 families decided to take their kids out. I think it's either 300 kids or 300 parents collectively got together, and that 150 students there. There was a massive exodus of the school here locally in Fort Lauderdale, massive. And I know that for different reasons. So what do you do then if it's now touching you directly, influencing you and your kids directly in the state of Florida?
You're saying if Florida goes completely from where woke goes to die to complete Wokeville?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I think, the famous saying, you vote with your wallet and you vote with your feet. I think that we saw what happened in California. How many people left California in 2020 during COVID?
Massive.
1 million people? They're like,
Massive.
I can't co-sign this. This is not what I'm going to do. And ultimately, I do believe that there's something called equilibrium. I think we've seen. No. Stay on this.
Don't play politics. I'm asking you a question. Hear me out.
Yeah.
If that happens, and every year you're living here, it's not getting any better. Year after year after year after year after year after. Then what do?
Well, you move. Okay. So watch this. The reason why 52% of Republicans and 42% are for it is because many people on the left are at a point where they cannot believe some states don't offer abortion rights. Okay? And to them, that's part of their rights and their religion. Okay? That has to be in place for them. By the way, I respect if that's something that you want to do. Number two, for them, LGBTQ is a right, needs to be in place. For them, these things are so important that they need to have that they're saying, I'm not going to feel comfortable living in a state like Florida. The point becomes the following. A person like me, I'm willing to bet there is 50 million people who are sitting there saying, nah, man, I think, I'd love to have a state I'm living in that the Constitution says never will we impose LGBTQ in our education and schooling, and it's a law. It'll never, ever happen in the state like it's a constitutional law. We will never do that, okay? Ever. We will never allow puberty blockers ever under the age of 18, ever. It's illegal, and whoever sells it, it's a crime in our state if you choose to sell it. I'm just giving you some of the stuff where I'm going. There are many families where when you look at the left and the right today with values, we are so far off on values. We are so far off in values where it's so hard to have the conversation of what people agree with. Because the 3 or 4 things that matter so much to you in your life, you're so far apart. So what happens? Say I bring my kids over to your house, okay? Your wife now believes in certain values that's different from my kids, and she says things like in front of me. Imagine we're out to dinner, and your wife's there, and she says, well, what's wrong? I told my son the other day, if he wants to be gay, there is nothing wrong with that. We teach our kids their options early on. I know who you are. First of all, you're going to lose your shit during dinner, okay? And you're going to say, what did you say to him? I told our son, if he wants to be gay, honey, he can do that, if he wants to do that. But do you know what happens in that moment for me? I can't have my kids be around your kids. Because that to me is a values and principles. That's values and principles that I'm raising my kids with. Not an adult. Later on in life, 16, 17, 18 years old, I'm not. That's a different story. If one of my kids after 18 is like, Dad, this is what I like. You know what, bro? Disappointed? But guess what? You made that decision as an adult. It's not going to happen with me being under 18. I'm going to raise you properly. But it's also not going to be because we're hanging out with Vinny, and Vinny all of a sudden it's like, well, what's wrong if you're this? And what's wrong if you're that? Nah, bro, you ain't going to be around it. Being a parent is very, very hard. Very, very hard. So that's the part, Adam, where for the first time, when the way this guy was explaining it to me, and I'm watching the videos in San Francisco, Pride Month, 30 days, 145 days. You know how far off that is with the values and principles of somebody that's raising a family and even common sense logic? You're like wondering why our birth rate is 1.6. Why do you think our birth rate is 1.6? And we're supposed to sit here and buy this like it's a regular thing? No. So to me, I actually fully understand what he's talking about with the fourth turning, and actually fully understand why some people are just saying, bro, give me a state with a few million people that we live in, but we have similar values and principles, and just leave us the F alone.
Yep.
and allow me to have certain values for my kids that I don't have to worry about. That's what I want. Now, you know what this also made me think about is the fact that, you know how much the enemy would love all our states to be divided in America, the union to be divided, because that's how China could win if all of a sudden states start succeeding and kind of like, well, Texas is going to be its own thing, Florida's going to be its own thing, and then the conversation led so much that we looked at which states have the most guns and which states, have the strongest military. You know who has the weakest military in America? West Virginia. You know who has the strongest military in America out of all the states? California.
Cali's huge.
Right? And then we looked at which states have the most guns, right? What was number one,
Texas?
Rob, on who had the most guns? Do you remember that yesterday that we went through it?
It was a Midwest state. I can't remember which one.
Yeah, but we went through. We saw Idaho. Oh, Montana. Montana and Wyoming. No, Montana. Per capita, Montana was number one. You're
per
right.
capita, yeah.
Yeah, per capita. Montana was one. Wyoming was there. And then you kind of going through that list where, we can defend for ourselves. He says, if it comes down to civil war, you're not looking at the military. You're looking at what states has people with guns.
Yep.
You're looking at which people have Second Amendment. You're looking at stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't know. I think what's given me a lot of confidence in the fact that won't happen is only one part of our system. That's given me a lot of confidence, and that's Supreme Court. That gives me all the confidence.
Thank
because
God.
the Supreme, if we didn't have the Supreme, if it was six, Sotomayor says, so you mean to tell me somebody can go to a Navy SEAL and says, kill my opponent, that's okay, that's immunity?
What are you talking
Well, first of all, what kind of a judge makes an irresponsible comment like that? What kind of a judge makes an irresponsible comment like that?
A liberal.
Yeah, she's describing something that was not near the same solar system as what the constitutional action we're talking about talks about.
Can I answer your question?
She's just like AOC at that moment, just throwing something out there.
I'm with you. And I guess for me, it's all about sequencing. So what's the sequencing of how do we get to a civil war here? So, all right, you're pissed. You're angry. You're super upset. Now you're completely enraged. Those are all logical emotions that you're going to go through. But how do you get to murderous psychopath, civil war, killing your neighbor? Like, walk me through how you get there and how that even works.
Bro.
The fact that we're even having this conversation. So you're upset, you're angry, whatever.
No.
All right, let's go kill people because they don't have different values as you?
It's not. No. It's called defending your values and principles that you're not willing to compromise.
So you murder your fellow civilians? I'm not saying you're advocating this.
Who's saying?
I'm just saying, like, when you're talking about civil war, it's not a pillow fight. I mean, it's literally you're killing your neighbor. How does that even work? Walk me through how that even works.
Do you?
It's easy to say. I'm not saying you're saying this.
Pull up how many civil wars we've had in the history of mankind. How many civil wars have we had? Okay.
Oh.
In history, how many total civil wars? Is there a number that says how many total civil wars we've had? Actually, would like just to see if it's going to say how many total civil wars. We've had many. Mm-hmm. Okay.
But how many democracies have had civil wars? That's what I'd be more interested in, because in authoritarian dictatorships,
more than 250 have broken out around the world. The number of civil wars have been increasing, almost 50% in 2022. Then in 2001,
in 20 years.
Civil wars are large-scale, sustained, and organized conflicts that often involve regular armed forces. They can result in many casualties and use up a lot of resources. Civil wars since World War II have lasted an average of just over 4 years, which is much longer than the average of 1.5 years from 1900 to 1944.
See which countries.
Bro, it is about, okay, so what is the fastest way to create an enemy? I learned this at 21 years old. What is the fastest way to create an enemy? It's one thing we do that is the fastest way to create an enemy. Like the average person's temperament can go from 0 to 100 if you try to do this. This is the fastest way to create an enemy.
Disrespect you do something wrong to their kids or family.
It's cool. That's okay.
Yeah.
Now you'll be upset about it. You're like, listen, you don't know me, you don't know us. We'll move on. What do you think is the fastest way to create an enemy?
Going after their beliefs, Christianity, religion.
But in what way, though? If you just make fun of it and you're giving opinions about it, fine, let's have a debate. That's not an enemy. You ready? And but
imposing,
the moment,
mandating.
Okay, there you go. And what is that? It's called forcing change. Mm-hmm. Forcing change. They're forcing you to accept LGBTQ. I'm having a conversation with my own kids that, hey, so let me get this straight. If I freaking play professional sports one day, I have to wear that flag on my jersey?
Yep.
What do you mean I have to wear that flag? So let me ask you a question. So that means, that's kind of like saying, if you play for this team, you have to wear a cross on your jersey. What if I'm a Muslim? What, you mean to tell me I have to wear a flag? Why do I have to wear a pride flag on a freaking jersey? Tell me why I have to wear a flag. Does that automatically mean that everybody believes in that? No. Why do I have to wear a flag? You're forcing change. You don't force change. There are many people in the world that you can get away with forcing change. Many people in the world. 99% of people, you're okay forcing change. They'll fight it a little bit, and then eventually they'll do what? They'll conform. Dude, the 1% that makes shit freaking happen, you don't force change. Specifically, changes that have to do with your values and principles. Not something like this. Hey, guys, moving forward, when you guys come in here, you guys got to do your, what do you call it, scanning?
Thumb scan.
I don't know, thumb scan or whatever you do. Here's what you got to do. Why? Security alert's gone up. We have to do this. Okay, cool. All right. Hey, moving forward, when we're doing health insurance and enrollment, we have to do XYZ first quarter every month. All right, I don't like to be part of a boring-ass meeting. I got it. But you're talking about forcing change? Like, hey, moving forward, your family has to accept the fact that this is Pride Month. Everything around the schools and sports teams have to be this. Fuck no. What are you talking about? No. That's forcing change. And that gets it to a point where one finally says, nah, man, what's the alternative? This is not normal to do this. No one is sitting there saying there's anything wrong with that. But you're forcing change. Stop it. Stop it. That's what they're doing. So the only reason one has ever thought about having a civil war is because people keep forcing change. They keep doing this. They keep doing this. They keep doing this. And you know what eventually happens? You're like, hey, bro, honestly.
One more time.
I swear to God. This is it. You crossed the line. We're not right here. You have a problem with me right now. You're forcing change. I'm not after here. You can put me in jail if you want to. You are not going to cross this line with my family and my kids. I'll go to jail for this. What do you want to do? Make a decision what you want to do right now. That's where a lot of people are at today. So I don't want to wake up and have to accept. And by the way, guess what? People on the other side, that's where they are with abortion. Mm-hmm. That's where they are with abortion. And guess what? I respect it. Go.
Yeah, but I'm not worried about too many feminists causing a civil war. I don't think that nobody's scared of that.
Wait a minute. There were patriots out there that were pointing out, and I believe correctly so, that a lot of the COVID measures used by our own government were dress rehearsals for when the government will use certain things to mandate change. You can't fly unless you had your COVID passport or whatever it is. And you know, there's a lot of, and I agree with them. When the government is forcing change, bad things happen. Look how strongly the reaction came from the 1% over the forcing COVID. Mm-hmm. We've seen it. We just saw a glimpse of what it could look like.
Yeah. So anyways, when I was talking to this guy, he gave me a complete different lens on where we are. And I actually understand, why, for example, for some of you guys, when you look at the last 30 days, okay, we've sold a lot of shirts. You know what was the top-selling shirt in the month of June? Rob, can you pull up the website? Go to Angry Patriot, vtmerch.com, really? Go to shirts. Angry Patriots was a #1 selling shirt last month, okay? #1. Nothing even came close to this. You know why? Because there's a lot of angry patriots, okay? There's a lot of angry patriots. By the way, put the link below for people that want to go to vtmerch.com. Order the angry. If you're like Vinny and you're an angry patriot, go sport the gear. There's a reason why this was #1 last month. People feel it. People are going through it. And I don't blame them, quite frankly. I don't blame them.
And can I ask you a question, though?
Yeah.
Is this a manufactured thing from them because they want us to be at a... They want that chaos, I believe. They want us to go nuts because once that happens, once the Civil War hits, Pat, the martial law and the military and everybody takes over, that's how they grab your guns. That's exactly what they want. So I urge people, don't let them fool you. Don't let them, everybody's black, white, race, this and that. Don't let them force shit down your throats. It's us against them, okay? But the moment you let them divide us, they're going to run away with the freaking gold. The hell with that.
Massive announcement. Would you like to meet Dwayne Johnson at the Vault Conference? Let me tell you how. We announced our last Minnect contest, which was absolutely insane. We were together at the cigar lounge till midnight. We had some of the best, I wish that was recorded. We had some of the best conversations together. Dinner at Casa D'Angelo. It was such a big hit that we're announcing the second official Minnect contest. Listen up, everybody. This is big. First one was a big hit. This is big, and it's going to get bigger and bigger. Again, like the last one that we announced, there's going to be lightweights, middleweights, and heavyweights for experts to compete in. For users asking questions, maybe you've never downloaded the app before. Anybody that hasn't downloaded the app as of July 1st, this contest is as of yesterday, July 1st. If you've never downloaded the app Minnect, you start Minnecting, you're going to be competing against other people for Minnecting the most with others. A Minnect is you ask somebody a question and they get back to you. So there's going to be a lightweight and a heavyweight. Lightweight is somebody that's never downloaded the app Minnect, and that starts as of yesterday. You download it and you start Minnecting. And then heavyweight is somebody that has Minnected before July 1st, and you also compete against people that were competing prior to that, right? You guys will be competing. Lightweight, middleweight, heavyweight, then you have users and experts, each category. Top three will be what we're going to do this year that's going to be slightly different with this Minnect contest. Top 5 of each category will be invited. If you attend the Vault Conference, you'd have to buy the ticket, travel, everything yourself. But we'll be announcing winners at the Vault Conference. You'll be walking across the stage, nearly 1,000 people in attendance. You'll be walking across the stage, and everyone will be publicly recognize you at the Vault Conference. On top of that, first place on each category, lightweight, middleweight, superweight, heavyweight, of experts and users. And a lightweight expert is somebody that's never Minnected before. You download the app and you start sharing with your audience, so they start asking questions. First place of each category. At the end of the meeting, when I'm having a conversation with The Rock in the back, you come to the back, you meet The Rock, and you take a picture with them at the Vault Conference. On top of that, you'll be invited to a special dinner that we're having at Minnect. You'll be invited to the CEO Lounge at the Vault Conference. And then aside from that, all of those names that we mentioned, you will be escorted by a sprinter to my hotel, and you'll come to my suite, and we will spend a couple hours together talking, strategizing like the last one. All I can tell you is the last one we did was a massive hit. This one's going to be bigger because you're getting recognition in front of everybody. And even the top people of winners, we're going to put your Minnect QR code out there so some people can Minnect you from the community of Valuetainment and Vault community, which is a massive community. So there you have it. The contest started yesterday. If you haven't started Minnecting yet, download the app, start Minnecting. Heck, who knows? I think, Vinny, how many Minnects are you away from 3,000?
Right now, I am 2 away from hitting 3,000.
Wow.
Hey,
Moments away.
Let's see if you can go pull up that QR code, Rob, with all the people on the. Go Minnect now. Be the first one to get Vinny to 3,000. Send a Minnect to Vinny to get him over 3,000. He passed up Tom. Tom, I think, is only about 20 or 30 away from getting to 3,000. Adam just got to 2,000. So download the app, start Minnecting. Cannot wait to spend that time with you guys at the Vault Conference.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.